time we had started with strings, and in the very first lecture we were talking about something like array, though when we started with the strings we did not talk about array as such. Assuming that you know what is array, we had written first function actually, string length. Array is defined as, if you want you can take down the definition. Array is a consecutive collection of data objects of the same type. In memory, all the values will be stored one after the other. All the values will be stored one after the other. They will be accessed by a common name. Along with index. Index is the position of the element. Into bracket, counted from position 0. Bracket complete. C language does not keep check. For the value of the index. For out of bound. That is if the array is declared for 50 elements, the index may go beyond 50 and there will be no compilation error. String is array of characters. But unlike other array elements, all the values can be accepted by a single statement. Now this means that if you are reading some n values in array A of integers, then you will have to write a loop to accept value by value, one by one. Of course you can input all the values separated by spaces, but in turn the values will be accepted one by one. It's not a single statement. You will have to write a loop to accept all the values. But for accepting the characters in the string, we can use a single statement which is without a loop, which we have seen in the last lecture, that was either scanf or getS. So a single statement can read the number of elements in that particular array, but this is possible only when it is character array, that is only in case of strings. If it is array of integers, you cannot do in such a manner, it will not work. You can read only one element, because if you write %d or %f, it will be reading only one value. Of course, for strings, if you make a mistake of reading or writing the format as %c, then probably it will be a tricky situation as whether you will be in a position to read the entire string, and answer is no. Format is %s, and in that case you can read it. Another difference is, almost in all cases whenever we are using scanf, we will be always attaching the ampersand sign before the particular variable, the value which we want to read, the variable name that we are going to use, that will be always preceded by ampersand sign, and we read it as address of A. Scanf works on the address basis. Scanf does not understand the variable name. That means scanf function in turn is not capable of associating a particular variable and then fetching the address and accepting the data from the user and storing it in that location. Scanf in a way will directly store the data in the address that is specified by the user, and this is the way in which we can directly pass the address of the memory location to function scanf by attaching ampersand sign. Now this will always work whenever it is integer value, whenever it is float, whenever you are trying to read a single character, whenever you are reading some element of the array, ith element of array A. In that case it will be the location of position I in array A. Okay, but in case of strings we are not going to attach this. We have written the function, the particular scanf or getS last time when we have used the name of that particular character array directly. Okay, we did not attach this ampersand sign, because whenever we are using arrays or whenever array is declared, the array name will always contain the address of first element of array, that is position 0. It will be the start address of the allocated memory. For array, consecutive memory locations will be allocated and the address of the first element will be stored in the array name. So whenever you use array name, you are actually referring to the address, and scanf is using the address directly, and that's why there is no need of attaching the ampersand sign before it. Okay, remember this. So this was the initial part of arrays that we have discussed in the first lecture, and last time we have directly used the functions scanf and getS for accepting the string, and we have also differentiated between the two functions, saying that scanf is going to terminate on the space, and so if the input string contains more than one word, that means words will be separated by spaces, then only first word will be accepted by scanf and the remaining will be skipped. Skipped in a sense, they will be still present in the keyboard buffer. Input buffer mein those characters will be still there. Only thing is we have read a first few characters up to the space. Rest of the characters are still there. Afterwards, if you again go for scanf %s, some other variable, then the next word will be accepted. Like in case of arrays of integers, we can input several values separated by spaces, and then one by one each scanf will be executed, which you are writing in loop, and so every scanf will pick up one value, whereas you have written so many values directly and pressed enter only once. All the successive values, they will be present in the keyboard buffer, and then the input will be taken from that, and so values will be stored appropriately. This will be one reason when you are writing a program for strings, then if after one scanf you are writing one more scanf, then probably one of the scanf, that is the second scanf, will be skipped. it might appear that the second scanf is not getting executed because there is some keystrokes which are still present in the input buffer, and the second scanf will actually fetch that, and effectively you will find that the particular program has not waited for the second input string. In such a situation, this might happen even for getS after getS. In that case, we suggest that between the two scanf statements, consecutive scanf statements, typically in case of strings, you will have to use something called as flush all or flush in. Either you flush the input buffer or you can flush all the buffers. That means clear them off. If some keystrokes, some data is still present in the keyboard buffer, then it will be better that you clean it off and then start with the new input. If you don't do that, then the previous keystrokes, if at all they are present, because we are not always sure that we have accepted everything, in that case that might create problem in the execution of the program, and you cannot just trace it. There will not be any execution error, but some input is sometimes missed. So you should be careful, and that is generally when you write loop. In that case it is going to happen in that manner. When we say that accept several names in the array of strings, we are yet to see array of strings, but in that case it might create a problem, and this will happen only in case of input. For other processing it will not be any trouble. So that was scanf statement, and getS is capable of even reading the space, because space is nothing but some ASCII character, some ASCII value is associated with space, and getS is capable of going up to the enter. Okay. The same problem that I have discussed earlier, or we have written it down, that C compiler is not capable of keeping a check on the index. In turn, if you have declared a string of say 20 characters, and if the input string is more than 20 characters, in that case all the characters will be accepted if you are using getS or even scanf, but a single word of length more than 20, and all the characters, they will be stored starting from the first location. Though the allocated memory is only for 20 characters, the rest of the characters could be stored one after the other. And then it might happen that we are not yet sure, as after the array, the next memory location, whether it is really empty or it is used by some other variable in your program, that is not known, because we say that the memory will be allocated by the compiler in the random manner. And when we use this word random, though the declarations are consecutive, it does not necessarily mean that the variables, they will be located one after the other in the memory. Otherwise there was no need of using the array, because you can just declare the variables as A, B, C, D, and they will be consecutive, appearing in the consecutive memory locations, and your job will be done. But the allocation is normally random, and in that case, after the array, the allocation for the array, the next memory location could be used by some other variable, and then if you accept a string having length more than the allocated, in that case those characters will be overwriting the successive memory locations, and the data over there will be lost, or it will be overwritten, or it will be corrupted. And if you try to use the value which is stored in the successive memory locations, then you might get some wrong values. Okay, this is what we have been discussing in the first two lectures as such. So starting with the string functions, which we have, one of them we have written last time, that was string length. Let us go for the second function called as string copy. There was one more question that was asked to me last time. If you recall, the function that I had written was string length, to which I had passed character p. I have said int I equal to 0, while p of I not equal to \0, I plus plus, return I. This is what we have discussed last time. There was one question which remained unanswered, as why empty brackets? Why empty brackets over here? Why am I not writing the size over there? Last time somebody has already pointed out to me that in some compilers it is necessary that you will have to write the size, but as per the specification, we did not write anything into this bracket, because what we are passing over here is simply the address of the allocated memory location. It is the start address of the array that we have declared somewhere else. Like if I have some declaration like char q square bracket 30, then this will be array q, and if I say n equal to strlen of q, this is how it will be called. Then this start address, because array name will always contain the starting address of the allocated memory, and that start address will be passed over here. Size will be obviously the one which you have already defined. Of course, compiler is not going to consider this particular size afterwards, because we have already said that the index will not be checked. So this size is not required for any calculation. So there is no new allocation. Remember, when I had written the function max earlier, I had written it like this, say int a, int b, and I had in main also int a, b. I said that there will be a memory location for a, memory location for b. When the function is called, this function is also going to allocate memory for the same two variables with name a and b, but their scope is limited to this function. The values from main, they will be transferred to these two locations, and these values will be processed. This was my statement when I had written function max. Now today when we are writing the function string length, then in that case the start address is passed, and whenever you are referring to p, you are still referring to the same memory location. It is not the different memory location as in the earlier case, because here I was passing the value, whereas here I am passing the address. And through this particular address, though the array name has been changed, but this array name will still contain the same start address. So effectively, whenever you are processing the strings, remember one thing, that any change that you make in the contents of the string inside the function, they will be permanently made even in the earlier function that you were using. It's not going to be a temporary change. Whereas here, when I enter into this function and if I increment a, that change will be local to this particular function. It will not be reflected outside. When I come back to the main function, a will still have the previous value, because that value will not be changed, because it is not the change which is made in the same memory location, but it will be the change in the value which is made at some different memory location. So in case of integers, floats, it's okay. So far as those are single variables. If they are arrays, again the same problem will arise, because arrays will be always passed by reference base, because you are going to call the function through the array name, which is nothing but the start address. And when the address is passed, the calling function as well as called function, they will share the same memory locations. So while writing the string functions, we should be rather careful that unless otherwise required, we should not be changing the contents, because if you make the changes, those will be made permanently, and then the calling function, the original string will be obviously changed. This was one function which we have written. Syntax is precisely char p empty square brackets. Whenever arrays are passed, the function will be called just by array name, whereas the function will be defined, if it is one-dimensional array, with empty square brackets. That particular parameter will be declared as array. This indicates that it is not a single variable, but it is array. The other option is pointer, which we will be learning afterwards. So the second function will be to copy the string. Of course, to copy it, you will have to have the concept like strcpy is the name of the function. String ko copy karna hai, so one string should be the one which will be copied, and the copy will be stored in somewhere else. So you will require two strings. It will be char, say s1, char s2. Now what do you want to do? You want to copy S1 into S2 or S2 into S1? Why? Why can't we copy S1 to S2? We can. But why you want to copy S2 to S1? Reason? Reason? I accept that we normally copy S2 to S1. Yes. क्यों? Sure. If I am writing the function on my own, so what's the question of library? Yeah, it follows the normal procedure of assignment, right to left. In assignment, some variable equal to something, so the right hand side is evaluated and will be copied into left hand side. So sticking to that particular thinking, for every user we should be always copying it from right to left, not left to right, because it will create confusion. As long as the second string does not end, so initially I is 0, pick up the first character and copy it as first character of S1 and then go for the next position. So it will copy first, then second, then third, etc. Will it copy \0? No, because when you reach the last character, end of the string marker, then the loop will be terminated. In that case, \0 is not yet copied. I will have to close the copied string. You can always write S1 of I equal to S2 of I also. Even that will work. Should I increment I in between? No, because S2's may, at whatever position you have \0, at the same position you want \0 in S1, because they will have the same number of characters. What should I return? What should I return? Nothing. We won't return anything from here. It was a job where the task is to be performed, the answer is not expected. समझ में आया? Nikhil, close the door. This is the difference. A function, when I ask समझ में आया, I am expecting the answer yes, no. Whereas this was a procedure, close the door. It did not say anything to me. It doesn't return anything. Got it? So we are simply giving a task that do this, and we expect that the job will be done. We are not again expecting some answer ki yes, I close the door, like no use. Okay? Will be a void type function. Next will be strcat to concat. First string is to be concatenated by the second string. Obviously, the previous contents of the original string, first string, are to be preserved. You will have to reach end of it. So I will have to write something like, find out the position of \0 in the first string. So you reach end of the first string. So I should be initially 0. So now S1 of I will be the position of \0. Now from S2 you pick up a character, that is 0th position, and copy it in S1. At that time it will overwrite \0. And then successively you keep on copying the characters, which is just like a copy. But now I cannot use the same index because the two positions are different. In first case, I is at the end of the first string, whereas the second string I will be at position 0. So I will require one more variable which will work as the index for the second one, and then it is just the loop for copy. While s2 of j is not equal to \0, s1 of I equal to s2 of j, I should go to the next position in the first string where the next character is to be written, and I should pick up the next character from s2. Both of them will go ahead simultaneously, so their difference will remain the same. What will that difference be? That difference will be equal to length of the first string. Length of the first string. So if at all you want to write it in slightly intelligent manner, one can go for something like n equal to strlen of s1, and then while s2 of I not equal to \0, s1 of I plus n equal to s2 of I. Not for everyone. आपको ये समझ में दिक्कत हो रही है तो just forget that. Over here, of course, initially I is 0, and then you will have to close the string s1 of I equal to \0. Function won't return anything. Same statement will be there also. It will be I plus n only, no? Or I plus n minus 1. It will be I plus n, huh? Of course, these functions, they can be shortened in the length when instead of while you go for, and this entire thing will be simply one line, and it will be like for, I need not initialize anything, s2 of j not equal to \0, s1 of I equal to s2 of j, I plus plus j plus plus, a for loop which does not have a body will precisely work in the same manner. But here we are spending as many as 4 lines of code, whereas it will be a single line code. So this is a replacement for this while. To make it more complicated, those who are interested, they can try merging this I plus plus and j plus plus at these two positions. If you can write it as s1 of I plus plus equal to s2 of j plus plus, and then just tell me whether it is working properly. If not, what modification? It should be a statement like s1 of I plus plus equal to s2 of j plus plus instead of 3 statements. I am just giving you some code which you should be trying and then answering whether it works or not. Also, the fact remains that we have said that C is defining 0 as false. In that case, \0 is also false. It is end of string marker, which is again treated as false. I can modify all my conditions like this, while s1 of I plus plus. It means the same thing while it is true, because when you reach backslash 0, when that character is backslash 0, means it is 0, null character, that means it is false, and you can terminate. So every time I am writing a condition like this up till now, that was for your understanding, but it will be while s2 of j, you can write this whole thing. Similarly here I will write the condition while for semicolon s2 of j and then s1 of I plus plus equal to s2 of j plus plus, and then tell me whether it works. Exactly on the same lines I will say that this while can be simply written as while s1 of I plus plus and whether it works. And if it works, where is exactly I after this loop? Because it might have gone one step ahead of backslash 0. In that case, even if you concat, still it will be concatenated after backslash 0, and when you try to print it, output will be only up to the backslash 0, and you will never see the second part of that string. Might happen because it is a post increment. And if it is a pre-increment, then the case could be different. The same question goes here, whether I should write that as plus plus I equal to s2 of plus plus j, and whether it is going to work. First thing that I have written will definitely work. The question remains about this or pre-increment. This one has to try on the machine. Less than 5% students try all this, but I am not going to run behind you. One thing. And if you try it, you have the answer. Only thing is, means whether it works or not, that answer you will have. For justification, we will have to discuss it. Okay, why it doesn't work or how it has worked. Like I am saying that it might go one step ahead of backslash. Okay. Don't expect answers from me, because I have already given you a code which is definitely going to run. Okay. ये जो आगे वाला पार्ट है वो आप ट्राई करना चाहो तो करो, then your coding will improve. If you don't try, you can still pass it. There is no hassle, right? लेकिन बिना सोचे समझे don't try to reduce the code, because it may not work as per your expectation. And then because you have written a cryptic code, it will be very difficult for you to debug it. Normally I suggest that whatever the first code that I have written, once you run that, then make one change and see whether it works. If it fails, then whatever change that you have made, there could be some error into it, and then rectify it. If you make all the changes simultaneously, like I plus plus and j plus plus, ये सब कुछ साथ साथ किया, so you will never come to know because whether the error is because of I plus plus or because of j plus plus. It might happen that you can write s1 of I equal to s2 of j plus plus comma I plus plus, and that might work, and the other way it may not work. Got it? So if you make both the changes simultaneously, then you try to remove one I plus plus, instead of that you write I, it may still not work. Okay, so every time whenever you are going for a cryptic or a reduced code, and if you are not knowing what the result will be, make only one change, run it again. If it runs satisfactorily, that is okay, go for the second change. Whenever there is error, try to reason it out. Why? Okay, so first code one has to write, run it, that will definitely run. वो run नहीं हुआ तो you can always give me a call. ऐसा होगा नहीं कभी भी throughout the course. Okay, any modification that you do, one after the other, and give me the exact situation. Okay, this is what I have done, this was working and I made this change and it is not working. So if you don't get the reason, I will give you the reason. Right? Next function, string reverse. A string is to be reverted and should be stored in itself. I'm not going to copy it somewhere else. So only one string should be passed. Situation could be position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Expected output okay. Of course, first character should go to the last position and last character to the first position. So it is mandatory that I will have to find out the position of the last character. So we will be making use of string length. I is set to the first position, position 0, and j will be set to the last character, that is the character before \0, because string length will give us the position of \0. Here \0 is at position 5 and there are 5 characters. So string length will definitely return 5, whereas the last character is at position 4. So you find out the length of the string, subtract 1, you will be at the last position, last valid character. Now you will have to interchange these two. For interchange, you will have to use something like temp equal to s of I. S of I equal to s of j. S of j equal to temp. This is the standard routine for interchanging two values. Of course, temp over here must be of character type. So for the first time it will interchange these two, because I will be initially at 0 and j will be at 4. You will have to go one step ahead with I, and from j, how will you put it in loop? While I is not equal to j, but भैया इस केस में तो I equal to j होगा because it is odd length. अगर वो even length का होता था तो I equal to j कभी नहीं होगा. While I is less than j. In that case, when I is equal to j, there will not be swapping, right? And that is not required because it will be the central position. Should I be writing \0? No, it is already there in its position. Having one printf statement somewhere in between, followed by either getch or something like that, will actually make you understand how the swapping is done, because it will print that string. Like after this it will print it as, because only one swapping is done. Next time next two characters, and then it will terminate. Okay. Instead of having a paper run, just putting the printf statements at appropriate positions will always make you understand the procedure as well as somebody else also. But where you put it, that is interesting. ये printf इसके बजाय यहाँ लिखा, तो what will be the output? अगर printf यहाँ पे लिखा, तो output will be, it will be y b h a y. यहाँ printf होता है, because a has been replaced by y, but the last position is yet to be replaced by a. और यहाँ पे लिखा तो there will not be any change. Got it? और यहाँ लिखा तो इसके बाद कहीं भी लिखो सेम, आई या जेड चेंज होने से कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला। ओके, यू हैव टेकन दिस डाउन। String compare. It is decided that if S1 is less than S2, it will return a negative value. If S1 is equal to S2, it will be 0. If S1 is greater than S2, it will return positive. So this strcmp is capable of giving us all the answers, okay, whether the strings are equal or not, and if they are not equal, then which one is the greater string, and then less than or greater than we are comparing on the alphabetical basis and not on the basis of length. Like which one is greater? Second one, because here character Y is greater than character A. Okay. Now which one is greater? Still the second one. And if it is A, B, H, A, Y, A, N, K, R, then which one is greater? Still the second one. Okay. Comparison will be at the same position, so we don't require two of them. 0 with 0 position, first with first character, second with second, like that. So while the first string does not end, while S1 of I, in your mind you can still say not equal to single quote \0, and as long as character at position I in S1 is equal to character at position I in S2, go ahead. If first string is not ended and ith character in S1 matches with ith character in S2, compare the next character. When will this loop terminate? There are two possibilities. Either the first string has ended or the two characters are not equal. Is it possible that the first string has ended but the two characters are equal? Is it possible that the first string has ended but the two characters are equal? Sometime, yes, when the two strings are equal, in that case the first string has ended. At that time actually the second condition was true, but because first is false, we are coming out. But if the string has not ended, that means we are definitely coming out because these two characters are not equal. If these two characters are not equal, then the decision will be on these two characters only, as which one is greater. Whether the character in S1 is greater or character in S2 is greater will decide whether string S1 is greater than string S2 or S2 is greater than S1. So when the first string ends and also second ends, in that case 0 minus 0 will return 0, strings are equal. But if we are coming out because the second condition is false, then difference in those two ASCII values themselves will indicate whether this minus this will be negative or positive. If this is negative, obviously character in S1 of I will be greater than that of S2 of I, and the first string will be greater alphabetically, nothing to do with the length. Any other function in strings? Copy, concat, length, reverse, compare. और कुछ? Substring, palindrome, sub str, char s1, char s2. किसे किस में ढूंढना है? S1 in S2 और S2 in S1? S2 in S1. ठीक, S2 in S1. And what is the aim? Yes or no? Only that part? Or how many times? What is the aim? Whether the substring is there or not? Is it the only question that we want to answer? Or we want to answer that yes, it is a substring and it is present so many times? Because for me it is going to be the same way. Because I will be answering 0 if it is not a substring, otherwise 1. But instead of 1 I can always answer 2, 3, 4, 5, anything. It will be still true and I can even get the number. Example which I normally give is string S1 and I want to search AND. So how many times it is there in S1? 4 times. And here, 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 here. It's substring. I am not checking for a word. Right? So we want to answer this to check whether S2 is present in S1 and how many times. Logically we will have to proceed like taking the first character of S2 and start moving in S1 till it matches. क्योंकि पहला कैरेक्टर मैच नहीं होता तब तक बाकी का तो सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता. So जो हम बोल रहे हैं वही लिखना है. I am saying that take the first character. So of course I is associated with S1, J with S2. Take the first character of S2 and start moving in S1 till it matches. So I will have to say while S1 of I, every time whenever you are moving in the string and incrementing the index, you will have to always check whether you are not passing the end of the string. So all the comparisons will go like while the string is not ended and the character in S1 of I is not equal to character in S2 of J, which eventually happens to be position 0. किसे इंक्रीमेंट करना है, I को या J को? I said that take the first character of S2 and keep on moving in S1. So you will have to increment I. Two possibilities, either the string has ended, in that case my answer is 0. If the string has not ended, that means the characters are equal. Otherwise you cannot terminate the loop. Whenever the loop is written using AND, then one of the two conditions must be false. If the first condition is still true, that means the string has not ended, that means the second must be false. If the second is false, that means character at position I in S1 must be equal to character at position Z, that is position 0. That means the first character has matched. So I will just check that, okay, whether first string has not yet ended. That is, while S1 of I not equal to, or if S1 of I not equal to \0. First string agar end nahi hua hai, that means the characters have matched. If the characters have matched, then as long as S1 of I is equal to S2 of I, क्योंकि अब साथ साथ चलना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि ये पहले A और A मैच हो गया. So this condition becomes false. I am here, string S1 has not been ended. So I come here. So these two are matching. So increment both of them and compare. Okay. So I will have to say while S1 of I is equal to S2 of Z, I plus plus Z plus plus. कब तक करोगे? जब तक सेकंड स्ट्रिंग खत्म नहीं होता. ओके. क्योंकि सेकंड स्ट्रिंग का ऑकरेंस फर्स्ट में ढूंढ रहे हैं हम. ऑफ कोर्स फर्स्ट स्ट्रिंग अगर पहले खत्म हो गया तो दीज विल नॉट बी इक्वल, वो भी है. Now when will you come to know that there is a substring? If all the characters match, like here A and A match, N and N match, and then A and D do not match. In that case I am coming out because these two are not equal. So when I come out, S2 of Z is not reaching \0. If the second string would have ended, then I would have definitely incremented my counter ki yes, it's a substring. Okay, so I require a counter also, which is initially 0, and that counter will be incremented if S2 of Z is equal to \0. In that case, counter should be incremented. नहीं तो otherwise जैसे कि यहां पे हो रहा है कि D and A they don't match, so I am not here. अब मुझे फिर से कंपैरिजन शुरू करनी होगी with this A starting from this N. J should be made 0, yeah. So else part I will write here, else J should be set to O before that. I कहां होगा? I ऑलरेडी इथे गेलाय. तू +1 केलास की इट विल रीच N आणि मग तो कधीच मॅच होणार नाही. हा I -1 या केस मध्ये चालेल, कारण एकच कॅरेक्टर पुढे गेला. ऍक्च्युअली हा जेवढा पुढे गेला आता 3, you will have to subtract from this position I, this value will take you here and add 1. जहां पे फर्स्ट मैचिंग हुआ था, यहां पे दिस वाज फर्स्ट मैचिंग I इक्वल टू Z. ये जो I था इसमें एक ऐड करना है. एंड इफ यू आर नॉट कंफर्टेबल विथ एनी कैलकुलेशन, देन यू कैन से IMAT, and whenever you come out of this loop, यहाँ पे एक स्टेटमेंट ऐड कर दो, IMAT equal to I, मतलब I matched. Okay, and then here I can easily now say j equal to 0 and I equal to जहां पे पहला मैचिंग हुआ था +1. That will be convenient. So you precisely know कि किस पोजीशन पे मैचिंग हुआ था. You want to start from one position ahead of it. And then you will have to again come from here. You will have to come from this point again. ये एक इसका कर्ली ब्रैकेट यहाँ खत्म होगा और एक कर्ली ब्रैकेट उस डू व्हाइल का होगा. व्हाइल you can always write the condition while s1 of I, क्योंकि इसके थ्रू अगर नहीं आए हम तो s1 of I will be \0, s1 of I will be \0, you can terminate, and then at the end return count. So we'll answer whether the substring is present or not, and if present, how many times. In fact, इस काउंट प्लस प्लस के बाद अगर आपने इस यहाँ पे एक कर्ली ब्रैकेट डाल के printf IMAT लिखा तो आपको यह भी पता चलेगा कि वो कहां से शुरू हो रही है, क्योंकि at this position when I am incrementing the counter I know that substring is found, and I also know that IMAT is the position from where that string is present. So if I just print the value of IMAT from here, then I will come to know that it is position 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6. So it will print from position 2 it is there, from position 6 it is there, and so on. All that can be done. One should know, okay, if there is a modification into it, then how it should be. If at all I give you the same problem, but I say that you should not be counting this and this and. If I say that you should not be counting this and that and as substring, but it should be this and this one, so what will you do? Ka space? Huh? Huh? That means I should be rewriting something? Should I be modifying it? Any intelligent answer? If I say that I am not going to change anything into this code, then you change S2 as space and space. Change this, no? Why should I rewrite code there? Now it won't match because even space becomes a character. So it is space and space. So that matching will be done over here only, not at this point. This is how string S2 should be considered as. One should try this. You straight away proceed to change the code. Because now if you put space and if I revert it back to saying that मुझे ये भी चाहिए, तो क्या करोगे? फिर से change करोगे. The only drawback is, in my case, if it is the case, if I input S2 like this, then the string cannot begin with and cannot end with and. क्योंकि starting में leading space नहीं होगा. and if and appears at the end, there will not be the trailing space. तब वो वर्क नहीं करेगा, but I know that. लेकिन फिर भी मेरा काम आसान होगा, because I will have to check and at the first 3 positions और and at the last 3 positions, क्योंकि सिर्फ वहीं पे फेल्यूर है, बाकी कहीं फेल्यूर नहीं होगा. If not a small change, अगर आपको प्रोग्राम ही मॉडिफाई करना है, तो that change will be again over here. Check imat -1 as space and j plus 1 as space, I plus 1 as space. And has been matched. अब इस and के पहले तो A has been matched at position imat, so imat -1 position पे space होनी चाहिए, और जहां अभी I है, where the last matching is done, that should be space. In that case also it will work. That will be additional condition over here before you increment the counter. You are required to read n names and sort them alphabetically. You are going to read them. I will give you the declaration also. It is character S, which can store 20 names, each could be of length 12. 2-dimensional array. That means here it could be first name, position 0 set, but this is 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 5. Rest is not used. You can go up to 11 actually. Next string is here. Then the third string. Like that you have strings up to n-1. To read them, it could be a loop like for I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. It could be simply get s of I. Okay, here you will require that flush all if it doesn't work. So the names are already there. Now use these functions which you have, string compare, string copy, and sort them. बबल सॉर्ट तो आपको पता है, बबल सॉर्ट से करो. ओके, आई वॉन्ट यू टू राइट कंप्लीट, यहां से लेके मेन से लेके एंड तक सिंटैक्टिकली करेक्ट पूरा लिखना है आपको. जो मेन हैसल था कैसे डिक्लेयर करना है, दैट आई हैव सॉल्व्ड. आई हैव सॉल्व्ड द इनपुट पार्ट. It is array of strings. That means 2-dimensional array of characters, like a matrix. Only thing is, in matrix you will use ij. Here I am not going j wise, column wise जाना ही नहीं पड़ेगा, because it will be the complete name, and that you will have to copy in the temporary. MNOP. So Brudula should be here and Pooja should be shifted down. So I will have to swap I and z. Okay, so Pooja should be shifted to some temporary string, then Mridula should be copied here and Pooja should be copied back. But then shifted, copied, you will have to use string copy. To compare two names, you will have to use string compare, like that. Right. So we will have to have the code in this manner. You will require a temporary which is also a string for swapping. बाकी declarations तो आप लिखोगे. It will be for I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. For j equal to I plus 1, j less than n, j plus plus. If strcmp, if ith string and jth string, when you compare them, if the first string is greater than second, that means if strcmp returns a value which is greater than 0, in that case strcpy temp comma s of I, strcpy s of I, s of j, strcpy s of j temp. This will sort it in the alphabetical. We are not using library functions, we are using the same functions which we have written. Of course, library functions will also work in the same manner. And then you can write one loop from 0 to n and print those strings.